Well, never mind all that stuff because COVID also taught Sunny Hostin how to get her groceries delivered. Yeah, I know, amazing. So that means it's time for...
Sunny just imploded on live TV. And no, Mercury in retrograde isn't to blame. Greg Gutfeld delivered a savage callop so intense, even her teleprompter seemed to short-circuit. The hypocrisy. Exposed. The drama? Off the charts. Tissues? Flying off the shelves. If you've ever wanted to see a meltdown faster than a paper straw in a hurricane, buckle up. This was the showdown no one saw coming, unless, of course, you've ever sat through an episode of The View. And what she said after the cameras stopped rolling. Absolute jaw drop.
You know, I make fun of The View a lot, but that's only because they keep talking. Those hens are always clucking. They get to say stupid stuff for an hour every day, and then I get to say stupid stuff for an hour every day, except on purpose. But every now and then, one of those dingbats inadvertently says something that reveals modern liberal thought so perfectly, it deserves further study. You know, like a weird serpent that washed up on the beach and you want to poke it with a stick.
Sunny Hostin finally snapped, and not the usual kind of snapping that happens daily on The View when someone dares to ask a question tougher than what's your favorite snack. No, this was a full-blown, high-definition, 4K, Ultra HD public meltdown. The catalyst? One man, Greg Gutfeld, who managed to expose more hypocrisy in 2 minutes than The View has buried under its rug in the past 2 decades.
So, Sunny, I bet you haven't been in a supermarket since COVID for about 3 years.
I haven't been in a supermarket since like COVID. About 3 years. That's when I discovered Instacart, and I give them a big tip because they don't always pay their people well, and it's so that's been an issue I think for the company. But man, you can get toiletries, you can get fire logs. You know those big Bounty towels you don't want to carry those from Costco. Somebody else goes.
Fire logs? She had to tell the audience that she tips big because even she knows she sounds insufferable.
It all started like any typical Tuesday on The View. Think group therapy meets pet rally with loud applause, relentless back-patting, and the shared fantasy that they're single-handedly saving democracy, one misinformed hot take at a time. Sunny Hostin, stepping into her usual role as the show's legal expert, a title she wields with all the finesse of a teenager playing Guitar Hero. High energy, low accuracy, naturally took center stage. Among her contributions, thought-provoking insights like, everything bad is someone else's fault, and facts don't matter if you shout them with enough passion.
Hostin's obsession with race gets thrown back in her face. Today's video comes to us from Sunny Hostin. Sounds like a town. We're in Sunny Hostin. She was on PBS's Finding Your Roots, a show dedicated to researching celebrity ancestry. For context, Sunny is a staunch supporter of reparations and has made a fortune spewing nonsense about white privilege and racial justice. Well, turns out she's not as oppressed as she claims she is. She's actually the descendant of slave owners from...
If you've never watched The View, just imagine the comment section of a political Facebook page, but run by people who once skimmed a Wikipedia article on the Constitution and decided they were experts. Sunny fits right in. She's the self-appointed voice of reason. As long as your definition of reason includes shouting threat to democracy anytime someone questions her Lada-fueled world.
Wow. I'm a little bit in shock. I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican, you know, half Puerto Rican. I didn't think I was, my family was originally from Spain and slaveholders.
Yeah. So how are you feeling, my friend?
I think it's actually pretty interesting that my husband and I have shared roots.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that. And I think it's great for our children to know this information. I guess it's a fact of life that this is how some people made their living, on the backs of...
Then, oh, sweet poetic justice, Greg Gutfeld stepped in. And that's when the real show began. Now, Gutfeld isn't exactly polished in the traditional sense. He's more like the guy at a dinner party who says what everyone else is too polite to admit out loud. And clearly, no one warned Sunny that sarcasm is still legal in most states, because the moment Greg started unpacking her greatest hits of hypocrisy, she folded faster than a beach chair in a hurricane. First on the list, Sunny's talent for preaching civil discourse, right after labeling half the country as democracy-destroying goblins just weeks earlier. Civil discourse in her book, only counts if you're repeating her talking points word for word. Deviate even slightly and suddenly you're an accessory to treason. That's the brilliance of Sunny's logic. A spectacular collision of courtroom theatrics and middle school cafeteria politics. But Greg didn't stop there. Oh no. He went full forensic mode, rolling out receipts like he was leading a forensic audit of her entire public record. One moment, she's passionately condemning family separations at the border. The next, when her preferred party is behind the same policy, it's suddenly a nuanced issue the rest of us just can't possibly understand. Hypocrisy. At this point, she could stitch it into a cozy throw blanket and sell it on Etsy.
I'm gonna milk this till the end of time. You're right. Anytime she says something stupid, I'm gonna go, slave owner! Kat, I just watched that. That's the second time I've watched that. She was tipped off beforehand, right? Because they had to tell her before, so she had time to regroup. They wouldn't just surprise.
Really?
You think? No?
I don't know. I feel like she could have maybe done better.
Greg laid it out plain and simple. Sunny's outrage works like a light switch. Flipped on the moment, a conservative clears their throat. Flipped off when a liberal body slams the Constitution. She's the type to demand a federal investigation over a tweet, yet defend politicians who couldn't spell ethics, even if you spotted them the E and the T and the best part. The audience at The View responded right on cue, like the loyal choir they are. Gutfeld could have handed them a signed scrapbook of Sunny's contradictions, autographed by Sunny herself, and they still would have booed him for spreading hate. Predictably, Sunny pulled the go-to move of every modern TV pundit. She played the victim card faster than you can say, manufactured outrage. With a trembling voice and tears rehearsed to media coach perfection. She transformed Gutfeld's criticism into a full-blown assault on women, minorities, and probably every shelter dog within a 100-mile radius. Because when you're losing the argument, you don't just move the goalposts. You torch the entire field and cry.
Women, white women in particular, want to protect this patriarchy here because it's to their benefit.
Yeah.
They want to make sure that their husbands do well. They want to make sure that their sons do well. They want to make sure that their children do well. And they want to make sure that they do well. Most of the women in some of these studies are married white women, and they do fall in line with what their husbands are doing.
People have to wonder, where does Sunny Hostin get her opinions?
Yeah.
Like you said, it's obviously from her husband. She has to tell her what to say in The View, because without it, she's got...
Sunny, who spent years lobbing insults at millions of Americans from her cushy ABC perch, suddenly found herself in tears, all because someone dared to point out that she contradicts herself more often than a motivational speaker with commitment issues. It was an emotional gymnastics at its finest, the kind of performance that would earn gold if Olympic judges awarded medals for unfiltered obliviousness. And The View? They circled the wagons like pioneers in an old western, only instead of fending off danger, they were shielding Sunny from the terrifying threat of a basic fact check. Even Whoopi Goldberg jumped in with a rallying cry that amounted to, "Facts are whatever you feel they are, as long as you believe hard enough." Meanwhile, producers backstage reportedly scrambled in panic, deeply worried about Sunny's emotional state, as if being publicly called out for hypocrisy isn't just business as usual in the world of televised opinion. You'd think someone in the spotlight this long would have grown a thicker skin by now, but apparently, this time, it was all just too much.
Joy Behar gets racism after all. She's been black on Halloween. Yeah. But Joy wasn't there on the show. Apparently Mondays are her days off when she feeds in the pasture. But that is convenient, right? It's like one of my aunts dies every time Brian Kilmeade wants to hang out. Maybe Joy needs a full day to read her hate mail, and that's just from the rest of the cast.
This was Greg Gutfeld daring to call out that the Emperor had no clothes, while the Emperor sobbed into her designer coffee cup. Naturally, social media lit up within minutes. Twitter flooded with memes, many brutally on point. One standout showed Sunny with the caption, "Strong opinions, weak spine." Another had her crying on The View under the tagline, "When you realize receipts don't lie." Even the typically disengaged crowd started paying attention. Turns out, when you spend years preaching civility while roasting half the country, people eventually catch on to the double standard. Meanwhile, Gutfeld's segment went viral. His effortless, sarcastic dismantling of Sunny's routine struck a nerve with viewers tired of being gaslit by the same 3 cable news narratives, reheated and served weekly like leftover takeout. It was a masterclass in exposing the truth. The View isn't the debate. It's a live-action Tumblr thread with a production budget and better lighting. It's not about discussion. It's about synchronized agreement, where everyone already knows the choreography, and any outsider making waves gets treated like they committed a crime.
But unlike this chick, we didn't think it was the best thing that could have happened to us. Although it did get Joy Behar to wear a mask. It's funny, her being named Joy is like me being named.
Made the whole spectacle even sweeter was watching The View scramble to rewrite the narrative. Suddenly, this wasn't about Sunny's glaring hypocrisy. No, this was about protecting women from vicious public attacks. It became a crusade against bullying, as if pointing out contradictions now ranks somewhere between grand larceny and a federal hate crime. The truth? The View is basically a padded room for ideas that can't survive contact with real, adult conversation. Sunny Hostin and her co-hosts aren't there to debate. They're there to deliver daily affirmations dressed up as political analysis. And the second someone brings logic, consistency, or, God forbid, sarcasm into the mix, the entire setup collapses like a bargain bin umbrella in a hurricane. Sunny's meltdown wasn't surprising. She's been building her tower of contradictions for years, stacking it brick by brick, take by take, phone call by phone call. Gutfeld just did the unthinkable. He sneezed, and the whole thing came crashing down.